Hey guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the Digital Pen Pals podcast. This is crazy. We actually have some listeners now. What do you think, Tux? That's pretty awesome, right?
Yes, thank you guys so much for all the support and love and everything. The numbers kind of blew my mind. I was hoping to get like a decent amount of people listening and I was hoping it to go well, but you guys have blown my expectations out of the water and it has warmed my heart beyond all. Um
I know, I was awestruck, honestly.
yeah. So thank you so much, you guys. By the way, I'm Tux Bodai, if you don't know, or Lincoln, and I'm here with my co-host Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach. I'm also a streamer and artist.
You can
And
find,
together, we're the Pen Pals.
yeah, we're the Digital Pen Pals.
Something.
Yeah, you can find all of our socials in the description. Also, we create a bunch of socials for the Digital Pen Pals, and Zach has them all, and he's going to tell them to you guys.
Oh yeah, we got all the Twitters and Instas. We have our Twitter. It's at Digital Pen Pals, and Instagram is at digital underscore pen underscore pals, and YouTube is Digital Pen Pals, of course. And right now, also an update on the podcast availability. It's supposed to be distributed to all major platforms. So if you're not seeing it somewhere, it might not be distributed just yet, just because of how the distribution thing works. But so far, we've been notified that it's on Spotify, Digital Pen Pals, and it should be under the same name under each place to listen. It's available on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Podcasts, and Radio Public, to be specific right now. But yeah, we'll keep you posted because it's still a learning experience for us to distribute a podcast. But yeah, it's definitely available for most people to listen to.
And shout out to all of our lovely YouTube listeners, because that's where we got the most reception, comments, likes, and everything. So thank you guys so much. Keep it up. Y'all
Yeah,
are the
thank you guys
best.
so much. You guys are too sweet.
So, Zach, what are we talking about today?
Oh boy, today's episode. It involves education.
Ah,
Ew.
gross. I'm a college dropout.
Ooh.
Education? What's that?
Yeah, I'm take me to cosmetology school or something. Like I'm gonna drop out just like in oh no, I forgot the name of it. Greece, Greece. Gosh dang it, Greece. Okay, I can talk. So yeah, we're gonna talk about education today, versus self-education, because it's like a major thing within the art community. It feels like people will argue about not going to school, saving money. Others will argue that going to school is important. Um, I have my stance, and I know you have your stance.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so yeah, ding ding ding. Just kidding.
If you don't remember
Fight.
from the last episode, we kind of talked about our background. So I am a college dropout, and Zach graduated from BYU, and he studied art. I don't know what the official term for that is. Zach, tell me,
Uh, yeah,
correct
I
me.
studied illustration, so I got my bachelor's in the arts. Um, yeah. Sorry, I should have started off with that, but
So first
yeah.
things first, being educated as an artist is something that you need to do. Even though I'm not getting a formal training currently and I'm not doing any formal schooling, I recognize that as an artist to grow, one of the best ways to do that is by education. Um, and whether that's books, whether that's mentors or videos or whatever, I think as an artist, we should always be actively seeking out ways to grow and learning from the masters and from those who came before us and even from our peers. A lot of people I feel have struggles with things such as peer reviews, and I feel that is one of my greatest strengths is I just love it when people critique my work, and I can take that pretty well. How about you, Zach?
Oh yeah, yeah. And to preface this too, I didn't mean to make it sound like it's a ding 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 fight, but that was just for funsies. Uh, but yeah, totally agree. Yeah, because me and Lincoln, we definitely agree on education that it's super important, because you have to learn things to do things good, you know. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that like critiques is something that like I had a hard time with, and I know a lot of people struggle with it at first. But then you learn that it's just to help you, and as long as people aren't being obnoxiously mean to your art, that's one thing. But they're actually giving you valid critiques, then that's great. That's something that's like helped me a lot in learning, in my education. And it's always good to see someone else's perspective on my artwork.
And education will really push you as an artist. I feel like I've drawn my entire life, but the moment I took a college course and learning how to draw, and it was just basically 1 point and 2 point perspectives, that really simple stuff. But my wonderful professor, his name is Alan Garnes. He makes beautiful paintings. He lives in our area too. Um, but he taught me so many things, such as drawing from my shoulder, ways to hold the pencil differently, and I learned about charcoal, and I'm mainly a college dropout due to the pandemic and all that fun stuff and other financial situations. So if I had my choice, I would love to get all the art education in the world. But there are other ways to learn.
Oh yeah. Yeah, as far as like my side of things, like, I tried to study to learn art, throughout my whole life. I mean, all throughout like middle, high school, I would always be searching up like YouTube tutorials and things like that and trying to, copy other art styles that maybe I like, or, just the typical things that normal artists do starting off. But it comes to a point where it's like you start to have a vision in your head of what you kind of want your artwork to be, and it's kind of hard to get there without any sort of like external help. And so I think it depends on the person too, because I feel like learning art on your own is tricky, especially if you're not like a very if you don't know how to, or you haven't learned how to motivate yourself yet. Because I feel like everyone can learn to motivate yourself, just sometimes we're in different steps of the progress of figuring that out. And for me, I kind of feel like I'm the kind of person and personality that needs like some sort of authority behind me to be like, hey, do this project, try this out, and like some professor in front of me. And so that's something that I learned while I was at school. I really felt like I needed somebody to be pushing me to do sorts of projects that would really push me over my limits. And yeah, I think that's something that was really vital for me, was having that kind of authority that would kind of push me to learn, because it was hard for me to get that motivation. And I've learned a lot more about like self motivating myself to learn. Even though I'm educated, it's still a continual progression. It's just like, I'm still looking up things on maybe other ways to draw, or maybe there's other things that I want to learn to draw, and I'm looking towards other artists to try to figure out how they've made their artwork, and slowly trying to incorporate that into my own work. And so it's still a thing that even people after graduating school go through. So it's not like education is going to fix everything, but it's going to get you a really good head start, in my opinion.
And just having that second opinion, whether it's authority or not, I've found is one of the most useful things that has propelled me in art. In the world of digital art, when you're first starting out and there's a million tutorials on which brushes you should use, how to set up your canvas, how to draw this, how to do that. And it's a little overwhelming, especially if you're using the internet with not much direction. So at the beginning of my digital art journey, I was fortunate enough to have a friend that I felt comfortable enough asking the stupid questions like, "Hey, which brush should I use?" or "How big should my canvas be?" Because all I was used to was just drawing on paper, whatever size it was, and I tried to draw heads, right, and I was trying to draw people and get good at that, and I had no clue where to look. I was finding so many different tutorials that were all contradicting each other, and it was just confusing all over the place. And I had a friend, and they finally showed me, "Hey, this is how I draw mine, and this is where I learned to draw mine. Try this." And I tried it, and it worked out. And my drawings aren't super stellar still, but my figure drawings are getting better, and I feel more comfortable with them. And every time I make a step, I take a step back, and I compare it to my old stuff, and I say, wow, I am better than I was yesterday. That is so inspiring. That's so awesome. And then I give a big warm thanks to the friend that helped me out.
Yeah, I think celebrating the small wins with like learning digital art, well, art in general, I mean, I should say, um, is definitely something you need to do, because you can get kind of bogged down if you're focusing on the bigger picture. You just kind of have to focus on the small wins. Um, but yeah, I would definitely say that you know the education and it does kind of contradict itself sometimes too, where you'll get certain professors that have different um, points of view, or they learn differently. Like, it's like passed down from generation to generation, these art principles and skills. And sometimes some of the techniques get a little changed. Like, for instance, I had a professor who, I don't know, I had the feeling he didn't like me at all. And I usually got along with all my professors, but for some reason, it just felt like something was off, and you get that vibe with people. And he would teach figure drawing. This was my first figure drawing class in college, and he would teach it where we could only like draw straight lines. Like, he told us no circles are allowed, and that like stressed me out like right off the bat. I'm like, wait, whoa, wait, what? I'm like, this is my first class. Like, can we just like use circles or something? Like that just it felt like a weird comfort. Like, you didn't realize it was a comfort until you couldn't draw circles anymore. And in some ways, it was really good for me, and a lot of it was like I kind of got frustrated. But what it did teach me, even though despite professors being, maybe they weren't teaching properly, I'm not sure, but in my opinion, it kind of seemed a little off. But I did learn about how to look at the human body and realize that everything has an angle. Because he basically, his belief was that there is no such thing as a circle or a curve in a human figure. It's all made up of angles, which is partially true, but they eventually, those angles add up and create a curve. But it did, like, show me that there are curves on the human body, and or these angles on the human body, and to be aware of them. And so after that, I was kind of traumatized going into my second class. But then my second professor for advanced figure drawing, which I felt like it was a joke, because I was like, I'm going into advanced figure drawing and I don't know squat. And so I went there really apprehensive, because I just did not understand like the measuring or how the thing worked. And then I think what was key for me, and I think this is something that goes into like self-education as well, is the ability to ask questions, just like you were saying. Asking friends, and despite the embarrassment, despite feeling like awkward, even if you're like, you think you're a phenomenal artist, it's always good to stop and ask questions to people that you think, or
Never be
that might
afraid to
have like
ask
more.
the stupid question that has been on your mind forever and ever that you can never understand. I never
Oh
knew
yeah.
which brush to use, and I always thought digital artists were good because they had good brushes. But then my friend said, "Hey, just use soft round, and you can do it like this." And then I'm like,
Yeah,
"No way!"
and I can like testify to that too. Like my other teacher that taught my, like, it was basically a character design class. I was asking him that because I was like, I'm gonna ask him a dumb question. I'm like, what brush do you use for like character design stuff? Like, do you have like certain stuff, or do you use textured stuff? I'm not really sure. And he's like, yeah, just the round brush. It does everything. I was like, oh. I was like, and this is a guy who's worked with like a lot of industries and stuff, and has created a lot of character design stuff. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, jumping back to the second art figure drawing class that I had, he he sat me. I kind of, he started teaching us, and then he would kind of leave us alone. That's just kind of how college is. You just a fair warning to anyone that might be thinking about going to art school. Don't freak out. That's just how college is. But you got to realize you have to go up to the professors and start asking them questions if you don't understand something. And so I decided to swallow my pride, despite everyone else around me, getting to work, and they were all already like, warmed up and ready to draw, and they knew what they were doing. And I was just like, I have no idea. So I eventually raised my hand. I was like, hey, I don't know really what I'm doing. My first figure drawing class, I really didn't learn much, and I was very open with them about it. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll totally help you out. He's like, let me sit over here, and I'll show you the ropes. And he was very friendly. And sometimes you just don't know until you ask, is kind of the thing. And I think in self education as well, you have to have that kind of mindset as well.
Yeah, you can learn so much just watching videos and following tutorials, but sometimes it's good to have somebody that has walked the path, that knows the way, so you can say, "Hey, I learned this from this tutorial, but I can't quite get this thing right. Do you know anything about this?" And maybe they'll have the answer, and it'll be super simple. It never hurts
Right.
to ask. It may be difficult at first to get used to asking, but once you get used to that, you have a door that's unlocked, and you have limitless things now that you can learn because you're not afraid of asking questions that may be stupid.
Right. I think a big principle in all this is like humility. If you ever look up the definition for humility, which I don't have it on hand right now, but just understanding that humility is like the key. It is that door that you're opening. Because if you're not humble, you're just going to be stuck in your own self, and you're never going to be able to break out of your shell. You're always going to be limited to your own capabilities, and not recognizing that other people or other things can help you. And that's where I think a lot of artists get it wrong, is they think they're so amazing that everything they post or everything that they do is amazing, and they just can't take
Wait,
critiques,
wait,
and they
wait,
can't.
hold up. Everything I do post and everything I do create is amazing, Zach. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never made a bad piece of art. I've never made a bad anything. Everything I produce is a masterpiece. I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there to all you guys. Just a heads up. I'm a
Oh
master.
yeah, oh yeah. I didn't mean you, of course, Lincoln.
Okay,
Of
yeah.
course not.
I just
Like
wanted to
everything you do is
clarify.
perfect. It's
Just
fine.
wanted to clarify
Yeah,
because I'm a
yeah. We just want to
I'm a
clarify that.
flawless
Also, I'm
artist.
in that bar too, where everything I post is perfect, right?
Yes. Yes.
Even educated, of course I can't do any wrong because I'm educated, right?
Right.
But no, no, yeah, like that humility is important too. Like even if you're educated, like I could be hot. Like I do, I'm proud of being able to accomplish that education side of things with art, but it's not something that it's like that means that I'm a professional or something. Like it is kind of weird because I guess it kind of does, but at the same time it's just like it's still that humility because I'm still open to learning, and I still know I have a long way to go to get to where I want to get. And that's what's really nice about streaming and things for me is it kind of gives me some sort of drive. And I think for me that like authoritative like kind of figure kind of pushing me to do stuff, I feel kind of is almost like the stream. It kind of makes me feel like I have to do something, because sometimes I struggle to self motivate, and sometimes I'm inspired, which is great. Everyone gets that, but for me, sometimes I need that extra push. And so, for me, like I get to learn while I'm streaming with everybody, and I think that's really fun. And I think that's what's great is when we're streaming and stuff, people can be drawing and things as well, and learning alongside us, and I think that's fantastic.
And that's one thing I'm happy that we're doing this podcast because it makes me feel like, oh no, there's eyes on me. I have to improve every week. I have to make my stuff better because I'm
They're
telling
gonna
all,
look at my stuff.
well, because I'm out here saying all this stuff about how we can do better, how we can go forward, and we can keep working on and working hard and improving through all these tips. But these tips don't mean anything if I don't follow them. So I want to be living proof of what I'm talking because actions speak louder than words.
Right. I think that's like what our kind of like idea of like what we're trying to do with everything is like it's almost kind of like puzzle pieces that fit into the bigger picture. Like we want to be better artists, and we want to eventually do all these really cool projects that we have in mind, but we can't really get there until we get to that sort of like art level that we're have like that we're envisioning for those projects. And so I think for content creation and stuff, it is kind of like that pressure, but kind of a good pressure to force us to really learn and to grow. Um, because in a year from now, we want to be able to look back at our art and be like, oh, look at that art, and then compare it to now. Like we'd want it to be like a huge difference. And so, and you can do a lot in within like a year or 6 months or even 1 month. And I think it's all just about challenging yourself and finding something that inspires you, something that will keep you going. Even when you struggle, that you'll be like, hey, this didn't turn out very well, but at least I'm drawing like Miyazaki artwork or something like that. Just something that you enjoy.
That that brings us to inspirations. What kind of art is important to you, Zach, and like what creators or what things have inspired you to become an artist and to pursue art? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Definitely not a bad segue.
Yeah, I think animation had like a huge role because it's one thing to see drawings, but it's another thing to see like things move on screen. And I think for me that was always interesting. And then I think I remember like some of the classic Disney movies. They might like show some behind the scenes stuff back on like VHS or something. And I remember seeing like the just hand drawn stuff in the rough animations. And it kind of like threw back the curtain behind that and made me realize I was like, oh, these are like just like the idea that they're handmade. And I think that was really cool and inspired me to kind of like think about stuff like that more, think about how things were made. But I think like my first memory, and I've kind of explained this actually like in one of my YouTube videos, but um, I talked about how one of my first very first experiences with like maybe even like being inspired to do art was from one of my brothers. Actually, we were sitting in church, and I was like probably like 5 or something. I don't know. I was very young, and I had like a Power Rangers action figure, right? Because that was the thing.
What color was
And
he?
I think he was green, but my favorite's red.
Not the Blue
I
Ranger.
think I
Come
had the
on.
red. Yeah. And actually, funny side little story is that red's my favorite color. I think because of Power Rangers, ironically. Uh, yeah, we're just sitting in church, and my brothers I knew were like good at like doodling stuff, and they just always have been, but just haven't like pursued it like I have. But I just remember sitting down and being like, "Hey, can you draw my action figure?" And so he sat down and he sketched it out, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like I just remember being like amazed because I was always amazed when they drew stuff, but for some reason I just remember that time specifically being like very impressed of just like I want to be able to do that. Like that's so cool. And so for me, like inspiration is just I don't know, just being able to do something that you think is amazing, or finding something that you think is amazing and being able to eventually do that thing and be the source of that amazing thing. So I think that's what inspires me a lot. As far as like art though, animation and um, I really like kind of concept art, I guess. I like the idea of creating worlds. I think it's fascinating.
Oh, I've become
But
obsessed with that recently. I started replaying Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild because I got Age of Calamity on my Switch. It's very fun. But Breath of the Wild is such a rich world, and I've been loving it so much that I bought the Creating a Champion book, and it's basically I gotta bring it to work and show it to you. But it's basically all of the concept art and everything. Well, I don't know if it's all of it, but it's a good amount of it from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with so much beautiful tidbits of information and all these design guides, and looking at that has made me so inspired. And
oh yeah, I think that's something too. Like just to add a quick thing to that is like I didn't really because I knew there are art books and concept art for movies or whatever you might have animated movies were there, but like I didn't realize how big of a role that they played until college, and then I realized a lot of people just had a collection of art books and I never had any. So I think it was like 20. I think it was last year, 2019 or something. I went to a convention in Burbank. CTNX. You guys can Google that and look it up. It's pretty interesting. Um, but I actually got like a collection of art books finally, and I didn't realize how powerful it was to have not just like a Pinterest board that you could look at every once in a while, but like to have physical books that you could look through and that you could just sit there and stare at and try to figure out how maybe they made the artwork. And so I think art books are huge. I would recommend if no one's ever really thought about it, maybe look and invest in some art books because those are really handy to have.
yeah, I actually purchased a handful of art books recently, and a few that I would recommend is a few by James Gurney. It's I think one is Color and Light, and then the other one is Imaginative Realism, and they go through extensively the process of creating worlds and being a creative. I'm not too deep into them, but they have helped a lot. But that kind of comes back to my inspiration as to why I wanted to become an artist and why I liked art. As a kid, I always loved Sonic the Hedgehog and Link
Nice.
from The Legend of
Little
Zelda.
bit of Sonic.
Because my name's Lincoln, and I always felt that I related with Link because we kind of shared the name, and then I related with Sonic because I thought he was cool. And he's blue, and I liked blue,
He can run fast.
and
That's
he's
cool.
so fast, and they were just so cool. And it's interesting because both of the characters were in three-dimensional space. But what I love to do in games is I loved specifically in Super Smash Bros. And I don't know if a Sonic game had this feature, but I love to pause the games and create cool scenes and then try and draw them with stick figures, and it never looked cool. But I wanted to master that, and that's one thing I am pursuing to this day is I want to take screenshots from games or screenshots or areas from games and almost redraw them and use them as reference. And I think that would be so cool. So that's probably one
Right.
of my biggest inspirations growing up. Another one is my dad used to tell us these stories, me and my older brother, every single night. And so I had this kind of explains an obsession I have with frogs. I had this pillow, right? And it was had frogs all over it, different tree frogs, different tropical frogs, everything. And then we had another pillowcase that had like volcanoes and islands and everything on it, and like tropical forests. So my dad came up with a story about this frog that had to go to the volcano to save his frog family or something. The the story's probably lost, and I'd have to ask my dad for it. But when I was a kid, I wanted to draw that story, and I wanted to turn it into some sort of book. So that's kind of like something I've kind of held inside of me forever, and it's turned into an unhealthy obsession for frogs. So if you know me, you'll know I will constantly bring up frogs, and I love them a lot.
Yeah, it's okay to love frogs sometimes.
They're just
Kermit, where'd you come from? Get out of here.
frogs are just so cool.
Yeah, they are cool. Whoa, what the?
Nature is like one of
My
the
Google
best
my Google went
inspirations.
off apparently on my phone. Sorry. I don't know what it detected, but apparently it listened to Kermit's voice. I don't know. Uh,
So those
yeah.
those are our inspirations from the past. Who are your inspirations today? Are there any specific people or art styles or games or what have you that inspires you today? I can name off a few, but I'm interested to hear what you got.
I would definitely say Breath of the Wild. Like you said too with the screenshot things. I've seen some artists actually do that, and they'll go out in Breath of the Wild and look for a good landscape and stuff, and they'll redo it. Um, but yeah, definitely Breath of the Wild is a really good one for as far as like art, like inspirational kind of art. I love open world games. Um, right now, it's kind of I'm kind of in a weird spot where like I love art. Obviously, I went to school for it. Um, but another part of me also has a love for like videography and things. That's why I love doing content creation as well. And so I am inspired by a lot of like there are a few vloggers that I really enjoy, namely like Casey Neistat. I really like them. They inspire me. You know, it's a different medium, but I do like seeing the mundane being portrayed in such a like cinematic way, and I think that's inspiring to me because as artists we have to translate stories and things into some sort of composition. In most cases, like sort of like a cinematic lens that we have to put it in order to make a story, which is what I hope to do eventually with making some comics and stuff that I have in mind. But um, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of in a weird spot. I do have some artists that I do love though. That have just kind of been constants for me is I really love Jake Parker. I love Randy Bishop. He's kind of one that I don't feel like a lot of people know. He was actually an alumni from BYU Idaho, where I went to school, and I first saw his artwork in um, like the art building after when he was graduating, and so I followed him on social media, and I was like, dude, his artwork's so good. I love this. And then eventually, when I signed up for one of my semesters, I looked and saw his name as a professor, and I was like, what? No way. So I took his class, and it was like the most amazing thing ever because I could actually be taught by somebody that I had admired for quite some time. And yeah, for me, he's a big inspiration just because of his attention to detail. If you look his stuff up, Randy Bishop, I'll say it again just in case you missed it, but he has such a good attention to detail to like structure. Like he doesn't just draw things two dimensionally, but he really understands the form of figures of things, and really really awesome artwork and really cool themes that inspire me. So I would say Jake Parker and mostly Randy Bishop honestly are like my big ones among some other ones. But
That's so awesome that you got to take a class with someone that like was like someone that inspired you so much. That's so incredible. I could only imagine. Um, a few of my inspirations today, they're kind of all over the place, but Magic the Gathering is something that has been a huge part of my life ever since I turned like 17. I just kind of been playing it, and it's where I met a lot of my recent friends. And so as a creative and lover of art, you you could guess that I've gained a few of my favorite artists, two specifically, Wesley Burt and Howard Leon, and I have met both of them in person, and they were just fantastic people. And Wesley Burt, he's a concept artist, so he does magic cards, but he mostly does concept art for Disney, which is incredible. He does a lot of Marvel concept art, so it's really fun to look at his stuff, see where like the early concepts of things such as like Fat Thor and like Thanos and like all that cool stuff. He does all those wonderful things, and he's just amazing to talk to. And he told us a neat design about a card that he had drawn of Oath of Liliana, how her second hand wasn't showing, and it could have been behind her back, crossing her fingers. And I thought, wow, this guy put in this detail that isn't even in the piece, and nobody would really see it without almost being told or looking way deep into it, and that spoke novels to me. And then Howard Leon was just a really genuine guy, and his pieces were wonderful, and he's just really nice all around. And I like meeting him. And I got a lot of cards signed from those people, so those are a few of my favorite keepsakes. And I want to get to a point where I can feel confident in saying, like, drawing art, I'd love to be on their level, but I almost don't expect myself. No, I do expect myself to. Don't talk yourself down, guys. I'm talking myself through this here. Don't talk yourself down.
Don't do that.
I want to get to their level, and that's kind of the style art I want to do. I love the painterly style. I'd love to learn to do oil painting. I know I'm doing digital right now, but I've become to love that.
Right.
A few other inspirations I have is a musician. Her name is Limbo. Her music has really helped me. She is one of the nicest people I have ever had the pleasure of interacting with. So go listen to her music. I listen to her music whenever I draw, and she's just fantastic. So she's really phenomenal. And then just the people around me really too. Like meeting Uzak was like really hopeful for me. Like, shoot, there's other like-minded people out there. And a few other fellow artists that it was really just inspiring to meet, inspiring to get to know them and be like, wow, all these people that have this fantastic art. Like when I first looked at your art, Zach, I was almost intimidated by you, and I was afraid you weren't gonna.
Really?
Well, I just have this thing when people are good at something, I would think they'd look down on me, or they'd look down on others who are.
That is kind of a natural thing. Like I do the same thing as well.
And so I was almost intimidated coming into like meeting you and talking to you, and then I meet you and you're just as goofy as I am, and that was super super relieving.
Because like I think it's funny though, because like it's ironic because we always think that like other bigger artists that seem to be way better than us. It's funny because if you break down art, it really doesn't matter like your personality or anything. It's just a matter of art is putting lines and color in the right spots. That's all it is when you like really boil art down. And I went to school for 4 years to be able to tell you that, so you're welcome.
And it's super interesting whenever you talk to somebody about them meeting like their favorite artists. I feel a majority of the time they always say, oh, they're just a nice person, they're super genuine, like they're just another person, they're not some untouchable god or some untouchable being that we idolize and be like, wow, I will never reach that height. But they're another person, and that's not to discredit any of their work. Their work is phenomenal, but it's
right.
It's relieving to know that they're another person with us.
Right. Yeah, it's just like a matter of how much experience they have. It's all about experience. As long as you're wading out the pools of art and finding inspirational people that you like and try to emulate them in some form, and you're just putting in the hours. I mean, that's just all it is just putting in the hours. And as long as you're having fun, those hours go by pretty quickly. So it's not like a huge huge deal to put in the hours. And that's why I said at the beginning of the podcast, being able to find stuff that inspires you and that you love is really important for you to create art. And for me, I think too, especially now, I've been coming up with like different projects. I made my art stickers that way. I had a whole thing where I was like, all right, I have a couple stickers that I made before I started streaming. And once I started streaming, I realized I was like, I kind of want to make a lot of these. And so I ended up setting some goals. You gave me some good advice about, like the categorical side of them. Like, well, separate your stickers into categories. And so that's what I did. And I, made sure I was like, all right, I'm going to have an even number per package of stickers. And so I ended up making 24 sticker designs. And that was like something that really inspired me and kept pushing me. And what was like really weird is even like for me going to school and doing art all the time, I didn't feel like I practiced as much as I should have. Mm-hmm. And doing something like that where I was like motivated to draw every day and I was excited to, because I got in this rhythm of like, drawing a lot. And it got to the point where I like midway through the project, I was like, holy crap, like I feel like I'm able to sit down and automatically just draw stuff. I'm like, holy crap,
it's a really
happening?
Good feeling when you're working
on
projects.
It almost felt magical. And so I think that can go for anyone. Like if you're just drawing constantly, you have a project that helps you forget about, that as long as you're not overthinking it and being like, oh my gosh, I'm putting in X amount of hours sorry, you're realizing that it it's fun and it's just time flies by, and it's crazy how much it helps you.
Yeah, that kind of comes back to the struggles we were talking about today. I feel like one of the hardest parts about drawing is sitting down and starting to draw. Because I've found every time I'm not in the mood to draw, I have to like slap myself and say, no, sit down, open up Photoshop, turn on your screen, flip it around, rearrange your desk. I have to go through this whole process of this whole like ritual basically of setting up my drawing station to actually start drawing. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. But every time, without fail, every time I sit down and draw, I always love it. And I always end up drawing for a lot longer than I expected. Like, I'll just say, okay, I'll just sit down and draw for 5 minutes. And then it's like SpongeBob narrator voice 2 hours later. I forget who said this. I'm going to look it up real fast because I want to credit him. I don't know his name, but he's the Blender guru. He does 3D modeling.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking
But
about.
he did an awesome talk about being a creative person, and he set some awesome goals on how he.
Was it like a TED talk then?
It was kind of like a TED talk. I'll find it and I'll.
Or he spoke at like, I think maybe it was like some sort of 3D Blender convention or something.
Yeah, and it was a really inspiring thing, and I listened to it maybe like 6 months ago, right when I really started kicking up and pushing myself and trying to get better art. I'll have the name of it at the next podcast. I'm gonna write that down here, so I'll have that because I want you guys to listen to that, and that's a really helpful Blender Guru.
Yeah, that's something I'll have to check out for
Yeah,
sure.
I'll link you it after this, but it's really awesome. So that's I
Right.
think one of my biggest struggles. Well, not my biggest struggle, but that's one of my struggles with art. I think another one of the biggest struggles, and I think every artist deals with this. Like, show me an artist that doesn't deal with this, and I'll think you're lying. But it's comparing yourself. Like we get so stuck up on comparing ourselves to our idols, and I think we talked about this in the last podcast too. But comparing yourself to others, people at a higher level than you, people at a similar level, same age, younger age, whatever. Like I have so many fantastic artists in my Discord community, and a lot of them are younger than me, and I feel like a lot of them are better at art than me. And sometimes I get down on myself, and I'm like, dang, I'm so behind. But then I say, stop, no, you got this. And so that's one thing that I've gotten in the habit of that has helped me kind of get out of that mind space, because that comparison can really be petrifying, and it can really paralyze you in your growth, and it's really the worst, and that's what creates quote art block. I like to say that art block doesn't exist, not because I don't think it exists, but because I want to deny its existence to myself.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was actually having a conversation like this on a TikTok live stream that I was having, and someone was saying how, because they were complimenting my artwork and stuff like that, and at some point they were kind of like saying stuff about, oh, my artwork's not that good and stuff like that, and I was like, no, don't do that, because we all do that, and it's really a struggle, and kind of the conversation we had too is that, I think a major key in understanding your artwork and being able to see its value is to um, know that you have something special. That we always worry about style. I guess you could call style a very blanket term for your artwork not being good. Oh, I don't have my style yet, I'm not good. But a style is made up of a bunch of different inspirations that you have, that slowly get kind of leaked into your artwork. But there's stuff about your artwork, no matter what kind of skill level you're at, that makes it important, and it makes it special. Um, you know, I think that you just have to be able to find those things, or ask other people, like the humility, like we were talking about. Maybe asking other people if you're struggling and you really feel like your art really stinks. Go ask somebody else, and see what they think. Like, what do you think of my artwork? What do you think is unique about it? What makes it different? And I think that's something you have to focus on, and not focusing about maybe your skill level isn't there. That's something we're always working on. But at least focusing on, like, at least there's this. At least I have this or something. And at least for me, like, I really like using texture. So I'm like, I'm getting there. I'm getting better at, like, drawing stuff more structurally so that it doesn't look flat. But, at least I have that, or at least I have texture in my artwork, like I like to put in there. So I'm able to kind of start to recognize those things in my own artwork.
Yeah, and I feel the same way too. Like I recently made a TikTok about that to just be proud of what you did today and how it was better than what you did yesterday or better than what you did a month ago. I think I have a specific drawing. It's on my desk and it's of a character lineup that I had done when I was I think 20 or 21, and I'm 22 now. And it does not look good at all. It is not something I ever want to show or that I'm proud to show. Maybe I'll show it one day, but it's it's frankly just bad all around, and I do not like looking at it. But I like looking at it every single day because it says this is where I was 2 years ago, and I'm in a much better spot now, comparatively to myself. So if you're comparing yourself to anybody, compare yourself to yourself. And if what you did today is worse than what you did yesterday, then just keep on pushing through because we believe in you.
Yeah, that's a really solid point. I really like that. Definitely quote Lincoln on that one. Compare yourself to yourself and not to others sometimes, because that's just literally how it is. Like, you can't control how other people perceive you or notice you, and that's something I struggle with too. Is like feeling like, putting ideas of what I think people think I am in my head, but in reality, I'm like, they perceive me differently, and they perceive me differently than I see myself in my own head. Because sometimes you can be down on yourself so much that you don't realize that um, you're too negative and hard on yourself. And so, definitely, looking back at your old artwork and being able to see that improvement will help you. And I think even to it's something I want to start doing, is going back to the artwork that, like I said, like, maybe you said, like, cringy artwork that you wouldn't want to show in public. I think that'd be fun because it does show your progression. And I think too, taking the challenge and being like, okay, this is a fun thing that I did that I don't like. How can I make it better? And like revisiting those artworks and redrawing them. And I think doing redraws like that might be a really fun thing to do. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. But if you're struggling to see your own worth in your artwork, go find an old sketchbook somewhere or some piece of paper that you drew on. However you draw, I kind of draw sporadically on stuff, but go find something old and see if you can't redraw it or make it better. Say like, oh, well, let's redesign this little original character I made and make it better. I just think things like that are really good, and you never know. A bad idea in the past might be a good idea now.
And I think that's a really good note to kind of end off. One thing I want to hear from you guys is who are your guys' inspirations? Let us know in the comments on wherever you're listening and the feedback. And from us at Digital Pen Pals Podcast, we want to give you guys another big giant thank you for all the support, love, subscribes, likes, views, everything, because y'all are awesome. But we also have one more thing to talk
Oh,
about. It's actually
oh yeah. Just before we get to that though, I kind of want to also set out another challenge. I want you guys, if you guys want to participate, you can tag us on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're doing it. Again, those social medias are down below if you want to be able to find us and tag us. Find an old piece of artwork and then try redrawing it.
also we're gonna do this
Or
as well.
okay, yeah, we'll do this as well. But or vice versa, you can choose either to redraw something old and showing the old artwork with the new, or you can show your old artwork compared to your new artwork, and just write something about positive about yourself about your artwork, and tag us, and we'll be sure to check it out, and we'd be really excited to see that.
Awesome.
But yeah, getting back to the last little bit of information that we wanted to let everyone know, is about our guests.
Yes, we've heard a lot of
We
feedback as to
we are
people
planning
wanting
to
to have
interview some
guests.
some artists.
Yes, we've heard a lot of people want guests, and that it would be a lot of fun. We're mostly looking for creators with like interesting mediums. I think we said this before in experience. But really, at the end of the day, we're looking for like-minded artists that are also making amazing content. So give us a heads up if you guys know anybody that's like that. And we have a few people in mind, so we will also be reaching out to you if you would like to be on the show. And if not, that's okay. You can keep listening. But thank you guys so
Right.
much.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for all the love, and we're really excited to kind of grow this podcast a little bit more, and we're really excited for the support that we've been able to get so far, just within the first couple episodes. And we just want to thank you again so much, and hope that if you also can spread this podcast around to other like-minded artists that might be like you trying to learn. If it helped you, try sharing it with somebody else, and that would be awesome.
And thank you so much for listening. I'm Tux Bodai, or Lincoln.
And I am Zach Shirts, or Zach Shirts.
You guys have an awesome day.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye. We'll see you next week.